So today is going to be a review of The Fault in Our Stars movie based on this beautiful book by John Green. If you haven't read any of John Green's books and you haven't actually heard of him and you've been living under the sea in a cave under a rock for 5 years, that's fine. He is an author of YA fiction. He's written The Fault in Our Stars, An Abundance of Catherine's, Paper Towns, and Looking for Alaska. He's also collaborated with other authors to write Let It Snow and Will Grayson, Will Grayson. This is his first book that's been turned into a movie, and in America the film has already come out. Obviously in the UK it hasn't, and it won't come out here until the 19th of June. But lucky for me, I get to go to the week early viewing, so I'm going today. However, this review won't go up until after the 19th because the way I review book adaptations will be in 4 parts. Part 1, I will read the book. Part 2, months later, I will watch the film for the first time. Part 3, after watching the film, I will reread the book immediately. Part 4, after finishing the book, I will immediately go and watch the film again. I'll take notes during both viewings, well not during, but after both viewings of the film. And after that I can then kind of say how I think the film was to people who haven't read the book or who vaguely know the plotline, and how I think the book is to die-hard fans of the book. I kind of decided to do this after I watched Divergent, after having not read the books for several months, and watching The Book Thief without ever having read the book. So I want to see how the film compares to kind of just being a standalone film, but also how it translates from pages to screen. So I am going to go and watch the film now, and I will see you guys when I get back. So I just got back from watching the week premiere. See my ticket? I'm gonna be calm while I try and explain how I feel about this film. It was beautiful. The writing was brilliant. And if you know me about movie adaptations, you know that usually the thing that I like the least is the writing and the script. It was done wonderfully. Literally there were scenes where they had just lifted text from the book and that was the script, and it was wonderful. Casting was brilliant. I loved her parents, I loved Isaac, I loved Nat Wolff as Isaac, that was spot on. I loved Ansel as Augustus. This is going to sound weird, but I thought the most spot on casting other than Isaac and Augustus was the guy who runs the support group in the literal heart of Jesus. He was just spot on. Perfect casting. There's a scene where he's playing his guitar and it was brilliant. I haven't read the book in about kind of 10 months, so going into this I knew the storyline and I knew the scenes, but I couldn't remember kind of the whole book word for word. So I know that there are things that they have changed, and I know that there are things that they have kept very, very much the same. The rest of this review is going to be filled with spoilers. So I would suggest that unless you want to get spoiled about the film or about the book, you don't watch the rest of this until you have read or watched it. So you can go, non-spoilery people. Bye. I'm so trying not to cry at this point. I will see you later. Hi, spoiled people. So, there were things that they changed and things that they kept very much the same. I really liked the opening. I liked the voiceover of what was nearly spot on to the exact opening words of the book. I liked the way that they changed it to make her mum talking about it some of the start. Thought that was really good. I liked like 85% of this movie. I thought was just perfectly spot on, and for me that's pretty high. Like even Divergent I didn't think was this good. It's brilliant, wonderful, loved it. That said, there were some things that I already know that they changed. Now I don't know if these are things that they have that are in deleted scenes, and that when I get it's not an if, it's a when I get the DVD, if these will be deleted scenes that are bonus features. So like, there's a line in Isaac's eulogy to Augustus that they cut that was about, God, she was pretentious, the boy couldn't take a piss without wondering about the universe, and I really liked that line and it wasn't in. They didn't do the thing about the paedophilic swing set. She was sad about the swing set, but they didn't sell it, and I don't know if that's going to be a deleted scene. I really, really hope that it is. We didn't see her going shopping with her friend, whose name I can't remember, and I hope that's a deleted scene. We did, at the end of the showing, get to see the deleted scene that had John Green in it about the cannula with his daughter and Hazel, but they had changed that from being in the mall to being in the airport on their way to Amsterdam. Ansel. For people who were dubious about going to see this film because of Ansel playing Augustus, you are wrong. He was so perfect, so brilliant at this part, and there wasn't a single scene where I was brought out of it and I was like, that's not what Augustus would do. He was so spot on, beautiful, perfect, exactly how it should have been. He wasn't afraid of doing the scenes that make human beings look awful, because that's what happens in the books. Augustus is not perfect, he's not brilliant all the time, and that's a big deal in the books, and I thought Ansel was just spot on all the time. So at the end of the viewing, because it was a premiere special screening, we got a pre-recorded Q&A with the cast and the producer and the director and John Green, which was really interesting. Well, it was kind of interesting. I thought Ansel and Nat and John all answered the questions really well, and I really liked the director's answers to some of the questions, and I didn't know that he'd lost someone to cancer previously before starting on this film, and that's kind of why he wanted to turn John's book into something like this. There's just so much stuff in my head. It was brilliant in every sense of the word. There were things that I didn't like, but I don't want to talk about them in this section, because although I know there are things that I didn't like at this point, I'm sure there will be more later once I've reread the book, and it's going to be better for me to just write a list at the point when I do part 4 of this video. So it was wonderful, but because it was an early screening and it was a week before, we got some prizes. Not prizes, we got some kind of extras and freebies. So we got 2 types of thing. First thing was this nifty little lanyard, and it's got this laminated picture that's the movie poster, and then is the 2 of them, and it's all pretty. Now, the second thing was a big poster, like huge. I'm not going to unroll it because it'll take forever and it's just too much effort. But it looks the same as this, but it's a big poster. So I went with my mum to this showing. My mum is not too keen on having a lanyard and a big poster in her room, because she's a grown woman who shares her room with, you know, a whole nother grown human being. There's not really room for posters in a room. But that means that I have a spare one of these and 2 spare posters, because I found a 3rd poster in the bathroom. 'Cause luck. So, I'm gonna do a giveaway, basically. The explanation will be on a link to my Tumblr below, but if you come in first, you will get a lanyard and a poster, and second, you will just get a poster, and I will ship anywhere. It won't cost you anything. You will obviously have to be comfortable giving out your address, but other than that, anyone can enter the giveaway, and I will see you after I've read the book in part 3! Hey guys, so this is part 3 and part 4 of my review for the Tfios movie. As I've already seen the film once and already read the book twice, I then decided to reread the book again and bookmark all the things in it. So there is a system to this madness, and it is a system that I'm going to be using again because I quite liked this way of kind of keeping track of what I thought of the book. So the things at the bottom here, there's only 2 of them, they're things that they changed in the film, but that I still really liked them kind of equally as much as I did in the book. The things down the side are the things that I think were kind of C or above quality. So things that were good, things that were okay, things that were perfect. Like 80% of these little bookmarks are basically, oh my god, they did it so well. The little blue ones, which you probably can't see very well at all, are just lines that really kind of were very poignant while I was rereading. This stuff at the top, all of that is stuff that is wrong in the film. And when I say wrong, I don't mean things that I hated in the film. Like, there are some things in here that I honestly didn't notice when I was watching the film, and it wasn't until I reread it that I even noticed they were there. Some of them were kind of, you've missed a line or changed a line from an important speech. Some of them were bigger than that. So all the things here aren't to say that there weren't things that they missed. So there are some things in this that they missed that I didn't bookmark. So like some bits of passage of time that just like didn't add anything to the story, and if they were going to include them in the film it would feel very odd. This was just going off my seeing the film once, so I have now gone and seen the film again. So the things that I wrote watching it the second time: night oxygen machine, and just confirming 3 things that I weren't sure about when I was reading. So shall we kind of go through the book and I'll pinpoint the things that I disliked. Let's start with my biggest complaint. They changed the way that she found the letter from Augustus. In the book, what happens is that she talks to Isaac, and Isaac says that Gus had written her something, a sequel to AIA, and she goes a little bit crazy trying to find this thing. So she looks on his computer, she asks his parents about his hospital bed. His dad rings her to tell her that there was a moleskin diary, but it had a couple pages missing, and she emails Ludwig, I think I'm pronouncing that right, about seeing if they're at Van Houten's house, which they are, and she reads them, and it's beautiful. In the film, what happens is Isaac talks to Van Houten at the funeral, who tells him that Gus sent him this letter that he needs to give to Hazel. And part of the thing that I kind of didn't like about that is that it kind of just condensed and really oversimplified that, and I thought it was a shame. And that was kind of my big issue, because usually like movies change things and they Hollywoodize it, and I think this film was very good at not doing that, except for that issue about changing the letter. I was a bit upset that they really oversimplified and reduced Isaac. So I think Nat Wolff was perfect, like spot on perfect. He was funny when he needed to be, he was sad when he needed to be, he was very believable, I thought, with the sight impairment and then being blind afterwards. And whoever it was that was in charge of kind of making his eye look like a glass eye, well done! I have a friend with a glass eye, and that is literally what they look like, and it's not massively obvious until you look right up at him and then his eye's not quite looking in the same place, and it was really well done, especially considering he doesn't have a glass eye. So that was really good. But Hazel and Isaac are friends before Augustus turns up in the book, and they play video games after he dies and even before he dies, and there's just a lot of communication that they missed out, and that kind of reduced Isaac's role in the film, and a lot of it was really funny stuff. So like the bit at the beginning about him preferring to be deaf than blind, they cut that from the film, and they cut the bit about humping the cave wall, which, my god, everyone wanted that line in the film. And like, I understand that it could have been taken offensively, but a lot of the humour in this book is self-deprecating humour. They insult themselves constantly, and they insult each other constantly because it's a way of dealing with it, and I thought it was a shame that they kind of oversimplified that. So in the book, Hazel goes to college. She goes to college classes. She has a friend called Caitlin that we meet, that we see her talking to at least 3 times. She has a friend called Matt, who, although we don't see him, he is mentioned. She spends a lot of time with her parents. She has interests. Her life does not revolve around Augustus Waters. In the film, she mentions going to college once. We never see her go to college. We never see Caitlin. Matt is never mentioned. Her parents aren't really in it a lot. A lot of their personality is reduced, so everything about her half birthdays is cut out. Her dad crying a lot is kind of cut out. Her mum doesn't celebrate holidays as much. I mean, I know there's that whole thing about the goji berry day and everything when they're having dinner, but in the book her mum is a lot more over the top about national holidays, and I think it was a shame that they cut that. The same thing goes for Gus, really. Like in the book, Gus has parents, 2 half-sisters who are married and have kids, and his life isn't just about Hazel. He goes to school. In the film, he doesn't go to school. There's no mention of his half-sisters. Like, there's a girl at the funeral who looks like kind of 28 years old, so it could be that she's one of these half-sisters, but you don't know, because there's, like, his parents say like 2 lines throughout the whole film, and I thought it was a real shame that they reduced kind of everything about these 2 really well-rounded characters to be very Hollywoodized, in that the only thing that's really important to them is their love interest, and that annoyed me quite a lot. I think those are my 3 big things about the actual film. There are other stuff, like all of these things were things that I think it was a real shame that they missed. So like they miss out the fact that Hazel's on a BiPAP, I hope I'm saying that right, which is a breathing machine that she has to use when she's sleeping. She has to use this especially big breathing machine after she ends up in hospital. They cut out the swing scene. So they do talk about the swing set, but they don't sell it, and I think that's a shame, because there was the beautiful line about paedophilic swing sets. They cut all of the Max Mayhem books. So like, he gives her the book, but there's no stuff about her reading the series and the fact that she's actually really interested in it. I think it was a shame that they made it seem like Hazel, like it wasn't hard for Hazel to be in that situation. Like, she does like Gus. He turns her on, he is attractive, she does think about him that way. And they cut all of that in a way. I felt very much like she was just kind of saying no because she wasn't interested. And it's not because she's not interested, it's because she's scared as shit that she's going to Caroline him. And that's the other thing. They cut Caroline Mathers. We never see Caroline in this book, but she's a big friggin' role, because it's because of her that Hazel decides that she can't really be with Gus. It's how she realises things, and like, they just should have left Caroline Mathers in. It wouldn't have been that hard. You talk about her for 2 seasons. You don't even need to cast anyone as Caroline Mathers. You just talk about her. It's not difficult. And then just the other things that are in here is kind of like lines that they altered or missed or switched, or kind of things that they didn't really do to the full extent that they could have. So the build up to Hazel ending up in hospital in the film, I don't think was good enough. In the book, I was honestly scared that Hazel was going to die. In the film, I was never scared that Hazel was going to die. Now, obviously I've read the book, so I know that she doesn't die, but I cannot imagine anyone sitting in the cinema and being honestly scared that Hazel was going to die. And I can't imagine anyone in the cinema seeing any foreshadowing to Augustus dying. In this book, there's loads of foreshadowing, kind of right from the get-go. He jumps on the grenade while they're playing video games, and then she calls herself a grenade, and there's foreshadowing. everywhere, and there wasn't in the film. It kind of came out of nowhere that he was dying, and I didn't like that. I thought it didn't make sense that his behaviour hadn't changed, because there's a point before he's dying, and then there's a point where he knows he's dying but no one else does, and that annoyed me that his behaviour didn't change. They cut the scene where Gus and his parents are having a yelling match, and I thought that was a shame as well, because again it shows you stuff about his life and the fact that his life does not revolve around Hazel. Obviously this isn't everything that I had a problem with in the film, and I am ridiculously critical of films, especially when I really love the books, and I really do love this book. The two other things that I want to say about this film that I kind of realised while watching it a second time. The first, which is the controversial bit, is that I don't really like Shailene as Hazel. I understand that a lot of people really like her as Hazel, that they think she was really good, but I didn't buy it. So for like 50% of the time I was really happy with her as Hazel. I thought it was really good, I believed it, but then like every 5 minutes or so she'd do something that was just so uncharacteristic, and I found it really jarring that every kind of 5 minutes I was being brought out of the illusion of these characters, because Shailene just wasn't Hazel to me. And I think part of that is because she's been cast. I think part of that is because she has been cast as Tris from Divergent, Amy from The Spectacular Now, and Hazel from The Fault in Our Stars. And if on the surface those two characters look really similar, they're thin, they're not above average beautiful, but they aren't ugly, they're nervous, they're shy, they have issues with their home life, they meet a guy, they fall in love, things change, there are issues. But when you delve into it, they're actually really, really different characters. And I think that it was a shame that they cast her as Hazel, because I found it very unbelievable in some scenes, because she seemed too much like Amy from The Spectacular Now, basically. Like Gus calls her beautiful, and she basically says the same line to him that she does to Sutter in The Spectacular Now, and I was just kind of, it just felt wrong, and I didn't like that. On the other hand, everyone else was cast perfectly. There were some things that I thought were done absolutely brilliantly. The speech was wonderful, like every version of every speech was wonderful. The pre-funeral speeches were beautiful. I was crying a hell of a lot. When I read the book I did cry, because it's a sad book, and when I saw the film the first time I cried a little bit, and then I reread it and I didn't cry at all, but I think that was partially because like every page I was stopping to put a sticker on a page. And then I watched it the second time, good 40 to 50 minutes before the end, I was just crying and crying and crying. Like, I don't think I've ever cried that steadily at a film. I think part of that is because it captured so well the kind of the feeling that a lot of people have when they lose someone. And if you know me, you will know that I have lost 2 people to cancer, and one of them was my friend Natalie, who I had known since I was kind of 6 or 7, and we weren't best friends. Like, it wasn't as close as Isaac and Augustus were, it wasn't that close, but she was someone who I could kind of, if I was having an issue, I knew I could talk to her about stuff, and that was incredibly sad, and she died far, far too young. And then the second person was my granddad. If you've ever lost a family member at all, you can understand how difficult that is. and if you haven't, then I really hope that you don't have to, because it is a really horrible experience. Actually, the thing that I thought was hardest, and what I thought was encapsulated really well in the book and in the film, was that it might not be the hardest thing for you, but watching other people go through that is devastating. They're people that I kind of think of as being like these pillars of strength, and suddenly they're not. And I think the book captures that feeling very well. The book captures it well, the film captures it well. Look, there's all of this stuff that they did really, really well. And I will be buying this film on DVD. After watching it the first time, I think I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars. And I was expecting the review to go down, like that rating to go down after I reread the book, because usually that's what happens after I reread the book. But it's not gonna go down. It's gonna stay where it is. It's gonna be a 4 out of 5. Like, if they had not simplified bits of the storyline, it would have gone up another half mark. And if they had chosen someone else to play Hazel, it would have gone up another half mark. But, like, 4 out of 5 for me is like, it's pretty high up there. I'm ridiculously critical with films. I hope you enjoyed this review. If you want to have a chat with me about it, if you massively disagree with everything I said, come and have a chat with me. If you thought I was spot on with everything, come and have a chat. And I will see you next time. Bye guys.